All right. So my name is Sally Smith, and I'd like to welcome everybody to our presentation today. I'd like to thank Barbara Klein for putting most of these slides together, and my presenter is will be Rick today. So actually, what this presentation about is the Oregon State League is asking the local leagues to vote on adopting an open primary system based on the state of Maryland's position. So currently, as you well know, Oregon has closed primaries, so that if you, in the primaries, if you are registered to one political party and there are partisan candidates on the ballot, you're only going to get the ballot for the party that you're registered with. So if I'm registered as a Republican, I'll be able to vote for the Republican candidates only. If I'm registered as a Republican or a Democrat, then I only can choose between the candidates that are on the Democratic part of the ballot. If I am registered as a non-affiliated voter or an independent voter, I get neither one of those ballots. So I don't have, this of course is only in the primary, so I don't have a voice on who's going to be running in the general election. And obviously this has worked well for Oregon for all these years, but the last few years, people have decided that, it's really not working that well. So the league is trying to get would like to establish a position on open primaries. So do you want to go to the next slide, please, Barb? Barbara, can you go to the next slide?
Just give me a second. It's frozen up. I will do that as soon as I can.
Good old technology. There we go. Okay. So the interested members who have proposed this system is Rick Bennett, Donna Cohen, Barbara Klein, Margaret Noel, myself, and Norman Terrell. A report was sent to all the leagues in the state, and it had the language in it that is being proposed. It had background material in it in the report. It had listed some pros and cons to having open primaries versus closed primaries. References were included, more information, and requests to the local leagues in Oregon. So next slide, please. So when I first started looking at this and the report and so forth, I was really not clear on exactly what concurrence means, exactly what's the definition of concurrence. And I know if you concur with somebody, you agree with somebody, but I was just vague on the actual definition as opposed to like consensus. A consensus means that, that you also are agreeing type of thing. And so I decided to go ahead and look up the definitions. And this definition of concurrence, I got from actually the League of Women Voters, a study that they did in 2014. And I've noted that at the bottom of the slide. So their language is, concurrence is an agreement among a substantial number of members reached after study leading to acceptance, reaffirmation, or rejection of a previously formulated statement of position. And I think the key words there are previously formulated. So a concurrence is where somebody else has already reached a position and they're asking you to agree, to concur with them. As well as a consensus, it's an agreement among a substantial number of members, again, reached after a study leading to the formation of a statement of position, sorry. Anyway, so consensus is when you actually do the study and then you reach a position. A concurrence is where you somebody else has already done the study and you've already got the position and you're just asking people to concur with you. And so that's in what the Oregon State League is asking the local leagues delegates to do at the convention in May. They're presenting a position that is based on Maryland, the state of Maryland, their study, and asking you to concur with it. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the presentation over to Rick, and he can carry on with the next slides.
All right, thank you very much, Sally. Next slide.
I'll be there in
No problem.
if I'm running the show and also trying to admit people, sometimes
Yeah,
it freezes up. But
no problem.
We will get there.
While you're doing that, just let people note the next slide. Here we go. Is the actual proposed language of the concurrence. And as Sally indicated, this is based on a League of Women Voters Maryland position, indicating, and you can see the actual language of the concurrence position, supports more open primary elections, either through party primary elections in which unaffiliated voters as well as party members would be permitted to vote in a primary election, but choose the nominees of that party, or individual candidate-based primary elections in which all voters choose among all candidates from all parties on the same ballot, with the candidate's party affiliation listed. The subsequent general election ballot would include either a predetermined number of candidates without regard for partisan affiliation, or those candidates receiving a predetermined percentage of the total primary vote. Now, make note that there is one exclusion from the one piece of language excluded from the Maryland position. After B1, they had included in parentheses the top 2, 3, or 4. And we just eliminated that. It just leaves, I think it's a more open position. Of course, we know that in, I think, the state of Washington and California, they have the primary of the top 2 vote getters. People would say that there have been some issues related to general elections where you wind up with 2 candidates of the same party. The preference, I think, would probably be for a top 4 or a top 5, where you would probably have members of both major parties and possibly minor parties included in that. In any case, this is the actual language that's being proposed and will be considered at the state convention next month and voted on by the delegates of the convention. Going to the next slide. So part of the reason why, or the main part of the reason that the supporters of this concurrence have put it forth is in decades past, of course, most people were registered either as Democrats or Republicans. But as you can see by the registration numbers as of January 2023, actually the largest group of registered voters are non-affiliated voters. And when you include them with minor party voter registrations, over 40% of the voters are individuals who cannot participate in the partisan primary elections. It should also be noted that the data indicates that of those, the median age of non-affiliated voters is around 40, considerably younger than the median age of either Democrats at 53 or Republicans at age 56. So the supporters of this concurrence feel that there's there's an inequitable situation process here, both because of much younger voters being excluded, and also the fact that the non-affiliated registered voters through taxes are paying for the primary election, but are not allowed to participate in the partisan part of the election. So that would seem to be an inequity as well. So next slide. It actually should be noted, this slide really speaks to the fact that while we don't have a specific position on primary elections, the Oregon League has in fact recently taken a position in support of legislation that includes an open primary system. We've done that utilizing national and state authorities. First, you have the national principles, which indicate the League of Women Voters believes every citizen should be protected in the right to vote, and no person or group should suffer legal, economic, or administrative discrimination. And then utilizing language from our Oregon election method position, we support systems that promote stable government, but we do not support systems that protect the two-party system. So we were able to take a position in support of this legislation based on the national and state existing language, but the supporters of the concurrence would like to have a position that clearly speaks to open primaries and the various options for creating an open primary. Next slide. So it's important to remember that even though we haven't done the study of them ourselves, we have looked at the Maryland position. We've looked closely at how they came to that through their study and through their process of consensus. We believe that the language that the position language that they finally approved would be helpful and consistent with what we'd like to do here in Oregon. I think it's important to note, though, that a concurrence needs a 2/3 vote of the membership to be passed at the convention. So it's not an easy process. That's still a 2/3 vote of the delegates at the convention is still a pretty high threshold to hit. But we wanted to go through some of the pros and cons related to closed versus open primaries. These points have been developed through looking at not only information we developed through our elections method update here in Oregon, but also other state studies as well. So let's go to the next slide and look at some of the pros and cons. And of course, not surprisingly, oftentimes the advantage for one primary system is a disadvantage for the other. I'm not going to read all of this, but I'll make a note of just a few things. Of course, looking at a closed partisan primary, clearly this allows the parties themselves, members of the party themselves, to choose candidates for the general election. And some would say that party affiliation provides useful information to voters as to what that candidate might stand for. On the other hand, you might say that, of course, as I've already mentioned, a disadvantage to a closed primary is that it excludes a lot of people not affiliated with the political party from participating in partisan races. As you know, oftentimes primary turnout is very low, so you actually have a minority of a minority determining a candidate for the general election. And of course, again, the non-affiliated voters are taxpayers. They're paying for the cost of an election, but they're not allowed to participate in the partisan aspects of it. On the other hand, advantages of open primaries, of course, all voters get to vote on a full slate of candidates. And then, of course, has been seen in other states that a final 4 or 5 candidates in the general election allows room for more centrist candidates to participate and possibly to win. Disadvantages. Voters will have less information about the candidates if they don't have the party affiliation listed. And that means that voters have to do a little more work in determining who candidates are and what they stand for. Personal opinion, I think that's a good idea. In any case, again, and the last disadvantage related to open primaries is that party members can be deprived of the sole right or voice to select their party's candidates. So that's some of the advantages and disadvantages of a closed versus an open primary system. And I think at this point, we'll answer questions. I know that's a little bit of information there, a lot of information actually in a short period of time, but we want to try and just stick to the key points and then respond to any questions you might have.
Can I stop sharing, Rick?
Yes, you can.
Okay. And if you don't mind, I'm going to butt in and add something to what Sally and Rick said. And one thing, this may seem small, but it's actually very important. It is not the state league that is recommending this, that is bringing it to you. It is those people, including the 3 of us, Sally, Rick, and I, who are bringing it to the rest of the state and asking at the state convention for this to be adopted. And we have presented to local leagues around the state, and the state league has agreed to recommend it as a recommended study, which just says to the members that, we've, done our due diligence and so on. But anyway, I just wanted to make that very clear. They're allowing it to be a recommended item, but it is not them that is bringing it to you. It is the people that were presenting this. And that's kind of an important thing, because it is members that do this, not the state. And then 2 other little things. The reason top 2 was not in there also is because the League of Women Voters of Oregon opposes top 2. So that is one reason we don't want top 2 in the language. And Rick mentioned this, and I just wanted to repeat it. The reason a consensus needs a 2/3 vote, more than not just a majority. When you're passing a study, it's just a majority, but the reason is because this is a little bit of short-circuiting the study process, which can be seen as a no-no. And the way to get around that is to demand that a very large percentage of the members have understanding and agree to it. So I just wanted to fill in those things.
Comments, questions?
Delegates represent the members, and if so, how many delegates from our chapter?
Say the first part again, please.
Do the delegates represent the members? And yes or no, and then how many delegates does our chapter have?
Yes, the delegates are based on your number of members you have in your local league, and so each local league selects its delegates to go to the state convention, and I believe Barbara or Kathleen perhaps can clarify, but I think we have either 3 or 4 delegates. Usually, it's the president plus a certain number based on your membership total.
We have 4 that could represent us. I believe we only have 2 that will.
So
I'm
you
sorry,
must be,
Well, go ahead.
Barbara, you said that we had, right, because at our board meetings, we were talking about, we've either had 3 or 4, but what was the 2 number that you were saying?
I
Only
said-
had 2 volunteers so far, or
Right.
going to kids?
Right.
Okay,
And I believe there's also virtual ability as well. So we may have more. I mean, we may fill our delegates is what I'm really trying to say.
Jean?
As a delegate, do I need to canvass a percentage or all of the membership about this issue before I go to the convention?
I can answer that. This is their time. This right here was their time to weigh in to give you pros or cons. And so this is the time to do this. If they wanted to tell you or others how they feel, they would have that ability to. But you know, the term the league always uses is that as a delegate, you go informed, not instructed. So you can vote the way you feel is appropriate and you need to be informed, but you're not necessarily said, Jean, you vote this way, you know.
I would also, I believe previously, a month or 2 ago, we had an open house where we members could discuss various proposed studies, and I believe this concurrence may have been included in that as well. And of course, I believe the board has discussed this at the same time.
and Jane, we do have a board meeting coming up this Thursday, and you can bring that subject, you know, this concurrence up as a delegate and pull the membership if anybody has any comments to make on it, yay or nay, which will give you another, you know, a better feel for it too.
I have a question afterwards, but Diane has her hand up.
Yes, our league, I'm sorry that I haven't contacted you with more information about our league, but we're small and we're confused because we don't have that much information on both subjects. But are you telling me if I am going virtually to the convention, I can, because I've been informed, I can vote without my league's input for or against this?
Well, what I was saying is that as a delegate, you can, yes, you could, but the idea is, you know, kind of an honor system here is that we are supposed to give. By the way, Diane, there's some black thing. If you lean over, we can see your face because
Oh,
right
dear.
now, there's a big black thing over your face somehow.
I don't know what's going on. I have a new computer and I'm having terrible problems.
If you lean to the other side, we may be able to. No, wrong side. There you go.
Well, I turned it on so you could see me and I'll turn it off again because
no, that's good. Now we see you.
okay.
I was going to say that, yes, technically, as a delegate, if they have chosen you to represent them as a delegate, then yes, you can. The honor system is usually that, you know, we're meant to give our members a time to weigh in to these decisions. And I do know that all of the things have been sent out and they're supposed to be distributed to local league members after that. They're sent to presidents. Are you telling me you didn't get anything?
No, I did get some things, but when I talk to people about it, we're such a small league. When I talk about any of this, it's just you do the best, whatever you know, and I can't get any very little input on just we're so overworked, quite honestly. They don't want to listen to anything other than getting through an election and, having the issues that are local issues that we're dealing with right now. So they do trust me. They do trust me, but they are uneducated. I am getting educated. So that's my you kind of told me that, yes, I can if I want to.
Well,
Right.
if I could jump in here, I think that's exactly right. And unless your board has determined a specific position on this, then it's up to you to inform yourself and then vote however you think makes most sense to you.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's that term, informed, not instructed. Rick, I had a question. Oh, and Dorothy's got one after me.
Mhm, mhm.
Could you talk just a second to the issue of being primaried? Because that was something, it's in there, but you didn't highlight it. But as a closed, for closed primaries, the
Sure.
issue of when being primaried.
Well, and particularly, as we well know, there are certain districts that the registrations are overwhelming in favor of one party or the other. So indeed, the idea is that if you win your primary, in all likelihood, you win in the general election. So candidates and incumbents, particularly incumbents, keeping that in mind, often that determines how they consider issues and how they vote, because they're afraid if they're not conservative enough or not liberal enough, that they're going to be challenged in the primary and perhaps voted out because of their previous votes and so forth. So again, a closed system, in my mind, leads to more, if not extreme, candidates in the general election who are most conservative or most liberal. And it makes it very difficult for more moderate candidates to actually be considered in a general election. Is that good enough? Yep. So.
Yeah, I think it's a real problem in the nation, so I'm glad you addressed it.
Others?
I have kind of a two-part question.
I'll only answer one.
All right, well, okay, but then pick which one.
No,
They're
go
both
ahead,
important to me, though.
Go ahead, Dorothy. Go ahead.
Okay. Are our delegates already determined? And if so, who are they? And second part is, when and where is the convention this year?
Well, let me go take the second part first.
Thank
The
you.
convention is in Eugene. And I want to say it's May 19th through the 21st. It's in that ballpark. I know that.
That's correct.
Okay. And so at this point, the board has discussed the delegates. We have two confirmed, that's Barbara and Jean Buck. Tentatively, I believe Alina Black has indicated she's interested in being a delegate, although she's having a surgery that may limit her mobility. So that's a little up in the air. But those are the confirmed and the tentative delegate.
Also, Jean Buck, aren't you?
I just said that. I did say that.
Oh, and then there's Barbara,
Barbara and Jean.
and then Alina. Okay,
Yes.
so that's possibly this. So that's three. And while we're on that question, so at the convention, a person can attend virtually by Zoom. You don't have to be a delegate to attend. So, back to Diane's question from Klamath Falls, if her membership wanted to just virtually attend, they could, but they wouldn't be voting on any issues because they're only there as observers. Only that you're a delegate representing your league are you allowed to vote, correct?
That's correct. Yes.
Okay.
And
I
you
just wanna
still have to
clarify.
pay. You still have
There's
to
still-
pay for
Right,
it.
Yes.
there's a fee. I understand that. There is a fee, right?
The fee is lower for participating via Zoom, not by much, But in any case, it is less than if you participate, register and participate in person.
If I register and pay and I'm a delegate, I can vote virtually. Just to make that clear.
Yes, who's speaking, by the way? Was that
It
Diane?
was
Was that
me, the
you?
black hole here.
Okay,
It's Diane.
yes. Yes, that is correct. If you're a delegate, you participate via Zoom, you cast your vote as a delegate.
I don't
boy.
know. Perhaps Rick can't see my hand up.
Oh, actually, it was up before, and I thought you
put
hadn't taken it down.
Another question. I
Yeah.
wanted to make sure, Dorothy asked about the state convention. Dorothy, this is both for you and anybody else. Do you not receive the state newsletter or our newsletter that lists these things? I just want to make sure, if you don't, you should.
I do, but I also have 300 emails to go through and
Yeah.
it sometimes gets lost and I sometimes get too busy. And so, but the big answer for your question is, yes, I received them. I just don't always give them proper attention. To be honest.
It's easier to ask a knowledgeable person like myself.
Yes, of course.
Okay, well, it's a little after past 1:30. Oh,
I'm
gosh,
sorry.
Barbara.
I'm sorry. I won't be long. I just wanted to make one other thing clear, and I think Rick did, but I wanted to say it too. You may have heard of two initiatives that are out there. I won't even go into what numbers they are and all that kind of thing. But one is for straight open primaries and another one is kind of on the Alaska model. And the league does currently, as it's written, support that one, even if it may someday be revamped. But anyway, the reason I'm bringing this up is don't get confused. What we are voting on as a possible position is neither one of those initiatives. This is strictly a very, very broad position, which the league likes to do anyway, have very broad positions so they can be interpreted for years and years. And that's why when Rick read that earlier, that's exactly what we are doing. And it is not necessarily either of those two initiatives that are currently being, campaigned on. So I just wanted to make sure everybody knew that.
Kathleen? Oh, got to turn the audio.
Kathleen, you're mute.
Yep, got it.
Right.
You're good.
I get these initiative petition announcements and I got one today, number 26. It's presented by this lady, Karen Lowry from Central Point. And it's about open primaries. Well, it's Oregon Voting Rights Amendment, and it seems to be about open primaries. Is this person, like, is there any coordination between your effort and all these other efforts? You're telling us no?
In answer to your question, Kathleen, it's not just her, it's three people, right? And the thing is, they had an initiative. They were the ones that did a straight, somebody was having, do we know who Kathleen Kirchner is?
Kathy Kirchner is from Grants Pass. She's a
Okay.
league member for a long, long time.
Okay, I'm letting her in, but she's not going to get much out of it at this point, since we were about to get off. Anyway, what I wanted to say to you, Kathleen, is that what you're talking about is the same three people had an initiative, IP16, and that was the one I mentioned, that's straight.
That's what you
open-
meant. Okay,
straight
okay.
open primaries. And the thing is, they are refiling basically just a little bit differently because the title that they ended up with, there's like really going back to the Secretary of State and the Attorney General about it, because they did not like the title at all. And so they are refiling. And the one that the league and myself personally are involved in is IP 19 under Oregon Election Reform Coalition. And that one could also be refiled. So anyway, that's the answer. They're the same people. They are only kind of working, the two groups are only kind of working together because there's some things that can't be agreed upon.
Okay,
But
that's good enough. Bart, I
okay.
just wanted to, okay,
But
okay.
the important thing is you may see little details of those that you don't like or you do like or whatever. That does not have to do with the concurrence
Currents at all, right?
that Rick went over, right?
Okay, Dorothy, were you
Yes,
waving your hand
I
again?
was just, since the convention is in a month, when will we know who our delegates are?
Well, I think we'd like to have that confirmed by our board meeting this week,
Okay,
if at all possible, but
thank you.
You know, people have to come up, they have to tell us that they're interested in doing it. It's not something that we go out and look for people to do, Dorothy. So
Okay,
please sign up if you like.
or at least you make your interest known to a board member. And
Okay,
of course,
thank you.
there is cost, there's registration for the convention, hotels, some food and so forth. The local league, we have some monies budgeted to provide as stipends to those who represent us as delegates. I don't think it'll be enough to cover total expenses, but it might help in some regard. Okay,
Thank you.
okay.
Diane has her hand up.
Oh, Diane?
Yeah, yes, thank you. Like I said, the members that are, don't normally have, just keeping our heads above water are very confused on all of this. Because you have initiatives, you have the concurrence, you have the, as opposed to a consensus. So now I've got it straight in my head because you had this. But when you get to convention, I hope that there is a lot of information that you're going to carry with you on this, because I was totally confused and was not, probably was, if I hadn't been come today, I might not have voted for this or as a delegate. So I think I'm just telling you, I hope you get more information out to each delegate.
If I'll take a shot at this first. Diane, of course, as a delegate, you're going to get a packet of information as far as what's going to be considered and so forth, both related to studies as well as this concurrence. And so you've got that. And of course, there'll be, at least based on my experience of attending past conventions, there will be considerable discussion both before and on the floor, as it were, when they're actually being considered for a vote. So sometimes I think you have more information than you frankly need to make a decision. But in any case, and of course, if you get your registration packet and so forth and still feel that there are questions, you can always contact one of us, at least on the concurrence. Jane.
I noticed that we are recording, and the presentation itself was short and concise and to the point, very easily understood. Perhaps that is available to Diane's group if necessary. I don't know.
We are going to put, we will probably delete a lot of this discussion off the recording, but the presentation,
No, we won't. No, we
All right.
won't. With the recording is the recording.
the presentation will be, we're going to try and put it on our website, perhaps on YouTube. We'll talk about that before the presentation started. So we are going to try and have it available. Yes.
That would be great. The presentation itself was great.
Thank you.
Not that I'm not saying bad things about the group. I'm just saying it just cleared right up all the fog I had about it.
Great.
Barbara?
I just
please.
wanted to add that the state LWVOR has a YouTube channel, and I am pretty certain that there is already one of these presentations, because there's been more than this one done. One of those presentations already on their channel. So I'll try to find that as well, but just so that you know, it is there, and hopefully this one will be too.
Okay. Everybody exhausted? I'm glad. Oftentimes, once we get into these things, I forget that I'm being recorded, and you know, God only knows what I may say, but I think I've been pretty good this time around. Thank you, Jean. Thumbs up. Okay, very good. If there's no more questions, we'll leave the meeting, and thank you all for attending. It's greatly appreciated.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
And
Thank you,
Barbara,
Rick and
thank you.
Jean. You're welcome.